Welcome to our September school board meeting. Call roll, Mr. Best.
Mr. Jewell,
Here.
Mrs. Lanehart,
Here.
Mr. Campbell,
Here.
Mr. Dunkman,
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
You all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see the NFL do that.
At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hook for the student.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. First up, I have, with a couple of kids we want to recognize from our middle school, Mr. Turner, the principal. I'm going to turn the podium over to you.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. At the middle school, we're trying to get through this heat wave a little bit, and it's been a little stuffy in there. So these long sleeves kind of get in our way every now and then. So, but we brought two ladies, two great students that we have at the middle school. They both have a couple of things that they did, and we want to recognize them tonight. The first one we have is Alyssa Brooks. We started our website. Everyone knows about the new website that we started. So what we kind of came up with this year, we kind of want to use it and utilize it and have maybe just a kid's perspective on some interest groups. And so she's at 6 articles now, is that right? She has 6 articles. So if you get a chance, she's kind of like our middle school blogger, and we just kind of again wanted to get things out of a student's eyes. So if you get a chance, get on there and read it. And I just wanted to bring Alyssa Brooks down to recognize her, please. Alyssa was, thank you. Alyssa came out of Mrs. Johnson's Advanced Language Arts, and she was probably the most highly recommended one to get. That's how she kind of got the job. So she does a great job in all of her classes, and she's a great student at the middle school. Our next lady we'd like to bring down, Haley Saylor. Haley went to our air camp this year. Again, that's donated through the Callahan Scholarship. So every year we pick, and there's a process we go through of picking the students that we want to nominate and see if they would like to spend a week at Wright State at an air camp where they learned a lot about just the aviation part of the world. So Haley went through a week-long training. She did a lot of neat things, and she's. I just want to recognize her for giving her time and commitment to our middle school. Come on down, Haley. I would like to say that these are two of our, just our top-notch students, and I want to congratulate both of them for everything they've done in their 3 years here. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Appreciate it. As our next person comes up, if you guys want to stay, you're certainly welcome. If you want to move on to something else, go ahead. Feel free. You won't hurt our feelings. I get that. There's quite a volleyball going to be going on out here if you're interested. Next up, just to give you up to speed, some of our technologies with Bruce Terry, our technology coordinator. Just kind of bring you up to speed of what's been going on in our world here.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to give a brief overview of technology projects in the district over the summer. Several projects this year. Mr. Hook spearheaded a new website this year with a more logical layout than the previous one that we'd had for years. We added a new virtual server for food service. We installed phone handsets on every teacher desk just to give them more options for communicating with parents and all that. We also added a new help desk system this year, so staff can fill out requests now for technology and for maintenance also. We rearranged the high school library to be more effective for presentations, and we replaced 30 PCs there in the high school library. We also began a rollout of teacher PCs for 3 of the buildings in the district. We are also replacing PCs in the middle school business lab and also in the elementary computer lab. We also added 4 new mobile labs that are wireless Chromebook carts. So 1 new cart for each building. And the mobile labs are great for online instruction and also for simplifying the testing process, the online testing process. So we're in a better position every year for online testing. So, any questions?
I do have one.
Okay.
Are we a Google Classroom school? I mean, I
We
know
are.
it's like a Google address, but it's
Absolutely.
some apps that I can't get going. Are there some things that we do or don't, or is there just a gap on?
Absolutely. And some teachers are more involved in that than others,
Okay.
but we are definitely all in on Google
Okay.
now, for sure. So,
How many of those wireless mobile labs are we up to now then?
oh boy, the grand total. Let's see, we have 5, 4. I want to say grand total, we have about 18, I think. I'd have to double check for sure. We keep adding more every year, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we have just been chipping away. We just keep chipping away at it. And we've taken advantage of several grants through like our virtual school partners and over the past couple of years. We've tried to just keep replenishing it. Of course, we knew that the state was going to require us last year to be virtual in all of our end-of-course exams as well as all of our state tests. So we've been ramping up the prior 5 years, so we're getting there, and we'll just keep chipping away at it, and trying to provide our students the best opportunities to be successful when they not only are here, but when they leave here, whether they're going into the business world right away, or if they're going into college. Regardless of where they go, technology is going to be center in their lives. So a lot of the things that we never thought or anymore, it's high tech. It's high tech stuff. So we're excited about it. Each of our waiver days that we've had for professional days, we've included Google Classroom options to learn. It's a learning curve for teachers too that haven't had it. Some of our younger teachers are coming out of collegiate arenas that have had that. And so that's just becomes almost second nature for some. So, but we're getting up to speed. We're getting more and more kids doing that, and it's really neat because they can turn in their homework 24/7. They just drop it into the drives, and it's pretty cool. So we're excited about it. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. And that's for Student Rex.
At this time, it's set for the visitors' comments. If we have any visitors who wants to come forward, I guess not. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Vassar for the treasurer report.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Just a couple non-action items before we get started, just actually events for the board. The first is the OSBA Fall Regional Conference, which this fall will be October the 12th at the Great Oaks Career Campus. And I believe I have responses from everyone on who's going. So that reservation has been taken care of. And then just a reminder of the Capital Conference, November 13 and 14. And arrangements have been made for that as well with reservations, staying overnight. For good or bad, we're in the same place we always are. So if you like it, that's good. If you don't like it, that's bad. So that's where we'll be staying again this year. So all right. With that, we'll move on to our action items. First, I need approval for the minutes from our last regularly scheduled board meeting on August the 28th.
I need a motion.
So moved. Second?
Second by Mr. Moore.
I got Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Lanehart,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell.
Yes.
Next is a financial report, which was included in your packet. I hate sounding like a broken record, but I guess the good news is I sound like a broken record.
That's good.
No surprises.
Positive.
So at the beginning of the year here, just a lot of startup costs. Getting a lot of new things in here to get started up for the classroom and the teachers and the students, which means we're paying a lot of bills along with that. But no surprises with those. So if no questions, I'll need approval.
I need a motion, first by Mrs. Lanehart,
Second.
second by Mr. Moore, or
Campbell.
James, sorry. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lanehart?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And lastly, every year in September, we need approval from the board for permanent appropriations for the district. Those were part of your packet. Just all of our funds with our appropriations for the year. And again, those can be changed on a monthly basis as I bring modifications, but these are our permanent appropriations as presented. So I will need, even though there's no lines here, I will need an approval for that.
Okay. I was gonna say,
I was wondering why everybody.
I just wrote them in, I just wrote it in real quick. It's good.
There's many reasons why we're just
I need a motion.
so
First by Mr. Campbell, second by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
And Mrs. Lanehart?
Yes.
And that is my report. Thank you.
Now we'll turn it over to Mr. Hook for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell, members of the board. Got some good news that I want to share with you, and we have some guests here that I'm going to turn the podium over to here in 2 seconds too, but just excited that we officially have our architectural firm on board. Todd Thackeray, Vice President of Steve Hammond and Paul, is with us tonight. I'll let him introduce the architect that's with him. But with that said, if you want to make your way up to the podium, Todd, we're excited the state approved the process. So the architect and the planning will begin in earnest, and we go on into the next processes of selecting the construction manager, but at least now we can start really getting after this. So take it away, Mr. Thackeray.
Thank you all, and thank Carlisle. Congratulations on passage of your issue, and thank you for selecting us to help you continue this journey. With me tonight is Nick Cristofaro. He is the project architect and lead designer on your project. We have a project manager who's not here, and we have about 25 other people who will be involved in the design and engineering of this building. We are ready to engage you and your community, your staff, your students, to drive the design of this, to make this uniquely Carlisle's school. This is just an outline of some basic decision-making structures in this, with you and the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission as the co-owners. And below that, all of this filters through with a core team that works on a couple times a month, pulling things together, keeping things on budget, keeping things moving. Below that is a building design team, representative of your entire community and all the functions that need to work together in this building. And below that is a list of the discrete functional areas that we anticipate, or you can choose from, as far as driving the details of the project. So from Carlisle history all the way over to student life, and just how this all works together. And we're excited to engage with you guys and create something that's never been seen before, and certainly something that hasn't been seen in Carlisle in a few years, or ever.
I think we are extremely excited, not just the board, everybody. I don't know if they're, you have to look a long ways. Everybody's excited. I actually went out to the volleyball match just to stick my head in and was asked about it. What's going on? Where are we at? So I said, we're on a roll now. So.
The second page is the overall project schedule to get this building opened for fall 2020. So there are a lot of things to happen between now and then, a lot of decisions to make, and a lot of construction to be done. So anyway, preliminarily, this is what we think the schedule looks like to get there. Next steps will be getting a construction manager on board that will actually drive the construction, and we'll be back and share more of the roles and what everyone will be doing to help you get there. Any questions?
Just so you know, once we get the construction manager in place and have a chance to bring everybody, we've talked a little bit today about at some point here, a month or two, when it's all, we get that full team, it'd be nice, we'll come back and do a little bit more detailed presentation on how it's driving, how it's moving. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you guys coming. So you'll see this posted up on the website later tonight, probably tomorrow, time I get home. So, moving on to my action items under general business. I need approval. This is kind of a unique thing. It's one of the new pieces in law that we have to just reaffirm our current policy. So it's nothing more than that. It's about career advising of students, which we do. It's also included in your package, so I need approval of that.
Need a motion?
So moved.
First by Mr. Moore,
Second.
second by Mrs. Lainhart. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart.
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman.
Yes.
Item 2, need approval for classified resignation listed in A.
Need a motion?
So moved.
First by Mr. Dunkman,
Second.
second by Mr. Campbell. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart.
Yes.
Item number 3, need approval for the classified employment. These include regular positions as well as some of our substitutes that we've added. We're at the front end of this, so that's why the list is lengthy. Items A through H is listed.
Need a motion?
So moved.
First by Mr. Moore,
Second.
second by Mrs. Lainhart. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart.
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Item number 4, under supplemental resignations, I need approval for item A.
Need a motion?
So moved.
First by Mr. Campbell,
Second.
by Mr. Moore. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes.
and Mr. Dunkman.
Yes.
I had to look a second time again there. Just a couple lines. Okay, finally, number 5, item 5, under supplemental employment. I need approval for those supplemental positions. Most of them are coaching. All of them are. Items A through D as in dog.
Need a motion?
So moved.
By Mr. Dunkman,
Second.
second by Mrs. Lainhart. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
And that concludes my portion.
Okay, do we have any news from our legislative report?
Nothing good to report this month. There's a lot going on up there in Columbus. Several things that are going to have some impact on education statewide, testing, things of that nature, but they're just rehashing things that they just decide they want to change every year for no apparent reason. So, like I said, nothing good.
Okay. What about CTC?
The CTC met on September 12th, 2017 at 7 p.m. It was this regular meeting.
Any old business? Any Any new business? And I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
First by Mr. Moore,
Second.
by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart?
Yes.
And Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Time is 6:21.